Reverend, open our afternoon session in prayer.
There it is.
Shall we all stand? Let's all stand.
Let's all stand.
Colleen, if you want to stand and join us, Alyssa can hold you up. Like,
All right, I invite you just to come into any posture in your body that feels comfortable, just to get into the presence of Jesus. Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, we take a moment just in the middle of the day, and it's so easy to lose touch with you in the midst of a busy schedule, in the midst of hurry, in the midst of so much good that we are called to do. These are the hours that sometimes it just feels like we've lost touch from that morning time before we decompress at the end of the day. But meet us here in this space with time, clear our mind, free our heart, relax our bodies, that we might be present to you, we might be present to one another, and that together as your body, your holy church, we can just usher in the kingdom 1 hour at a time. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
you can applaud Jesus.
Yeah.
Colleen has my audio.
You're good.
All right, good deal. We're recording. All right, so this morning, this is the first time I've missed anything to do with the greenhouse, but I'm so ever thankful for Anne Marie, Dave, and Alyssa for carrying us forward. There was, and of course, Terry, she was behind the pole. Sorry. Thank you, Terry. So I was at the extended cabinet meeting this morning. Bishop was sharing with the extended cabinet about general conference being postponed. And so I needed to be at that one, not Zoom in for that one. So sorry about that, but it sounds like it was a really exciting morning. Our team was talking about how well you all are doing on your vision script. So excellent. At the end of our time today, we'll talk about what you're going to do with that vision script as we turn the corner to the second half of our greenhouse and prepare to join the sharks.
Dun, 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 dun.
Play the Jaws music. Today we're going to talk about networking. You've got a handout that we can work through, take some notes. You'll be answering a few questions on your own, reflection questions. I think networking is one of the most important aspects of, we'll call it church planting, because I think oftentimes it's where I see neglect early on in church planting. We start out really excited about planting seeds for Jesus because that's all Jesus says we have to do, right? Is to scatter the seeds, right? We get excited about that, and we're really good at it. And then about year 5, we all start saying, we know everybody here. Why do we have to keep inviting or meeting new people? It's comfortable. So you run into that challenge of where do you go from here? I remember when I served at the established church. I've served at 3 established churches in Missouri. One of the smallest Methodist churches, the largest Methodist church, and then a mid-sized group. And I used to see church planters hanging out in a coffee shop after I learned that they were church planters. But when I would see them, I would think, I didn't know they were church planters. I would be like, they're here all day. They were here this morning when I came and got coffee. They're here this afternoon. They probably thought I drank a lot of coffee, seeing me twice in one day. But I'm like, they're either unemployed or graphic designers. So now I know that it's important to set up shop outside the walls of the church. Now, most of you in here serve at an established church. So there's a little bit of a dance that you might have to figure out how to navigate. Especially Ryan, who's going to start a church within a church at the same church. So networking is the art of meeting new people to, like I said, scatter the seeds of the potential church and show your community that you care. It's not manipulation. It's not using people to pack your pews. It's really, there's a strategy behind it.
You can hand out for Colleen.
Oh yeah, I'll email
can get it later.
No, I had it, I emailed it to myself in PDF so that I could send it to you. All right, headed your way, colleagues.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Jason, why don't you read Luke 10, 5 through 7? This is an important scripture for networking and building relationships and partnerships. I think it's on your handout.
Is it?
Top of your handout. See it? Is it on there?
When you enter a house, first say, peace to this house. If someone who promotes peace is there, what?
Yeah, most pieces there.
Is there? Yeah, okay, didn't make sense. Sorry, guy.
Yeah.
Your peace will rest on them. If not, it will return to you.
Such a big part of church planting. Alyssa can attest to that. When they were discerning where to plant, they were looking for persons of peace. And they were not seeing them as often in the beginning. Finally, they did, and they landed on where they're at now, on year 4 or 5 now. So, but I think we do this in our new GHX cohort, don't we, Anne Marie? Look for persons of peace. So I would say, remember that scripture, Luke 10, 5 through 7, going forward, will be a very important part of what we do. So we're calling this the art of networking. Getting to know people has changed dramatically in just the past 2 to 3 years. We did this greenhouse in 2020 online. It was really hard for me to share with people best practices on meeting new people in 2020. It really was, because we did that early on, and the online community wasn't as robust as we see it now. But obviously now online is such an important part of networking, meeting new people. Remember, I said I started the largest Methodist church in Missouri. When that church planted 30 years ago now, they went door to door, hanging door hangers on the doors. Might not do that as much today, right? Not a lot of people go door to door without a notice. And so I think knowing what to say and how to say it and where to say it are the keys to really learning how to network. In the business world, we have our 30-second elevator pitch, and I've shared with you all, I learned to network when I started 2 businesses at the age of 22. I if I was going to survive, I had to get more comfortable and better at that. So going into the church world, I knew a little bit about how to network. But when I got into the church world, my focus became more on the people instead of the process. And so it's such an important part. So in the business world, you might have 30 seconds to do your pitch. In the church world, you might have 3 minutes to introduce your vision to people. Why is it important to learn how to network? 89% of the people who come to church for the first time come because someone invited them, picked them up, and brought them. I'm a marketing person, but it doesn't matter how good the marketing is. And you need that to complement evangelism and invitation. You really got to create that culture of invitation, which we're going to talk about in a little bit. We like to use the Jesus model, your first 3, 12, and then when you get to 72 is when you're going to launch this thing, generally speaking, right? Because if you can get to 72 meeting and discipleship groups, small groups, you can launch with 125 to 150 at a typical new faith community. Oftentimes, people start these new faith communities prematurely and never really get off the ground. We like to say in the development world, you really have 2 chances to launch a new church. If you don't get that momentum the first time, you got one more shot to kind of regroup, stop, build that capacity up again, and start over. We see a lot of new churches who just don't make it. to that fifth year. If you get to the fifth year, we feel like you're probably over the hump. That being said, we know people who are on year 10 that are struggling in a new church and this charter. So we're going to talk about recruiting your first three. So whether you're doing fresh expression type of ministry or the attractional model, take a couple of minutes right now and think about who's going to be your first three people. Can they be people from another church? Well, you want a good foundation. You want healthy disciples that will help you see this. So we're not plucking people because we don't own anyone. But there are times when you can ask people to prayerfully consider coming along with you, maybe as a missionary, short term or long term. I'm thinking of Colleen, who I spoke with last week. She's going to try to reach into the people that she has and find where some energy might be to do a new expression out of her existing church, right? So it's a different scenario, but she probably knows right off the top of her head 3 people who would get excited about this. So take a couple minutes, write their names in, if you don't already know it. Because next you're going to write down the next 12, the next 9.
I think that was nice.
Yeah, because
That was up.
We have a guest zooming in at 2:30. His name is Danny Linebarger. He's a church planter in Missouri. He launched a church in the fall in a brewery, not a fresh expression, the church that will charter as a new United Methodist Church. And after today, you'll follow Danny on Facebook. I mean, he's doing really good. And so he's going to share with us some of his strategies on it. Just a heads up in an hour. What are you going to do with that first 3? Well, you're going to invest in them. You're going to disciple them. You're going to vision cast. You're going to talk about giving, growing their faith through giving and generosity, right? You're going to pour into these first 3 for a while. Talk about maybe study the book of Acts. And I'm not giving you a technical step by step. It's going to be different for everybody. But when you get to a certain point, those 3 will recruit 4 other people. So for example, when you got Nicole and Becky, at some point, Becky will take a group of 4 and she'll pour into them vision casting, talking about supporting the vision, right? And then you have 12 group leaders at some point. Now, it might not ever work out this perfectly, but you get the gist of it. You really got to multiply yourself. You have to invest in people, the vision. Do y'all have a group of 12 in your head that could be a part of this? Yeah. Sam, you're shaking your head yes. Are those people already attending Kettering? Or are they young people with similar affinity as you? They're just waiting to be a part of something like this.
Yep.
Good. That's definitely expedites the whole process. So you have 3, 12, 72 launched. And 72 isn't necessarily a magic number, but I think we have a few people in the room, Dave and Alyssa will tell you, to have a sustainable new faith community, the magic number is 100 invested adults. Now we have various models here in the room, so everything is contingent. Bill's maybe different. He's going to maybe do fresh expressions out of an established church, right? But you really have to get to 100 invested adults. Now, in the UMC, we have other variables to consider. If you're an elder and you want it paid, then you probably do need to hit that budget. So, I mean, there's just a lot of variables to play. So that's why I say whenever people share their ideas with me, I'm like, that's really great. Do you want paid? The answer is yes. Come with me and we'll go through this together and figure out what you need to put in place to get there. Because you also want to have some resources to do ministry with as well, I think. So I think we'll talk in a moment about, it's not just about getting the first 12, it's getting the right one. You want to get the right one. So be thinking about your first 3, maybe even your first 12. Those are just kind of benchmarks for you to look at yourself. If you're going to want to begin investing in that first group so that they can deploy them to invest in that second group. But this takes time. You always want to begin with that culture of invitation. If you can start with that, it's going to last you for a while. It'll carry through. We started a new church out of the First United Methodist Church in Sikeston, Missouri. Some of you have heard about that. We started out with 50 people, but we launched that thing with 450 people. And it just kept multiplying because people were so excited about it. They were inviting their friends. Now it was unique. It was kind of the only type of church like that in town. But you all have unique new ministries as well. So you've got to gather the people, share the vision, which is what you've all been working on for a while. And if you strongly believe this is God's vision for you, sharing the vision will become a natural part of who you are. Like I said, it sounds like you all have made great progress already into this, that I'm looking forward to hearing more. Going forward, you're going to work on your pitch because we're getting ready for the April 6th Shark Tank in Columbus. Each of you will have a chance to go before a couple of different panels and give your 60-second elevator pitch. It's really a fascinating and fun exercise, isn't it? Yeah. As you heard me say that the day one of the contests in P&G, right? Yeah. But it's really helpful because they're going to listen to what you have to say. They're going to offer their perspective, whether it's a layperson who started a business or a senior pastor who has led successful capital campaigns, stewardship campaigns. So they're going to give you their perspective from their lenses. So when we finish today, I'll give you a little bit more instructions on that. But you've worked on your vision script. It's probably a decent place to come with. You got to start kind of paring it down a little bit. Not eliminating things, but getting it in the format where you can say, hey, this is what I do. All right. You'll also, as you see, you need to think about various types of audiences. I mentioned my business, existing church, new churches. Come to this role. I'm the developer of New Faith Communities from West Ohio. I learned in January of 2019 that the bishop also wanted me to fundraise and raise $5 million, now 7 or 8, keeps going up.
Actually, the final phase.
Final phase, yes. But just 2 days ago, so back when he did that in 2019, imagine our world in 2019, General Conference, St. Louis, February. He said, I need you to take that over, Brad. And I was like, so you're trying to get rid of it? Just say it now. You just want me to leave. So I had to kind of shift my thinking, which was one of the best things for me to kind of sharpen some of the things that I've done in the past. But so I had to start going around meeting new people, sharing my elevator pitch, sharing the vision, and then asking people to support that. And so first person I went to, I'd known for a long time since I've been here. And I said, I'd like for you to consider $100,000 to support what I just shared. And they did it, that church did it. So from that point on, I got a little confident back and started moving forward. But I was going to tell you, just 2 days ago, I was on a phone with a pastor in Cincinnati, and I said, hey, we've been talking about this for a while. Do you think your church would consider $50,000 pledge to support these people? And so he texted me a couple hours later, like, can you talk? And I'm like, even in my role, when I get a text from pastors sometimes, I'm like, can we talk? What do you think when you get that text? Can we talk? Gosh, what about that now? But she's like, I want you to know, as long as you all are going to continue to do creative, innovative, new things. She said, new places for new faces. We're in for 50. I was like, I'm going to do old places for not new faces. So yes, we're in. So anyway, I just think for me, this role has helped me to continue to kind of think conference church planter. I have to do everything that I ask you all to do in real time too. I have to keep it sharp. And Henry, Dave, Peter, Melissa, they're always willing to say, I've asked you all to be at various events to share and do your pitch because they're the ones that help get it done. So for you all, again, invitation to do that as well. So we're going to talk about your pitch amongst your teams or individuals if you like. But I want you to take a few minutes. There's some questions there. Describe the New Faith community that you're feeling called to. This is to help you kind of dwindle it down because we're working on our networking strategy here. So you've got to kind of get it down from where it was. So take a few minutes, describe the New Faith community on your own. We're at a minute to describe this, why we come on what to invest their evenings, weekends, and money into this New Faith community. We're at a sentence that describes the temple organic mission. And then we're at 3 to 5 phrases from the previous 4 answers. So I'm going to give you about 7 minutes. You may not need it because some of you are like there already. So.
Got to get hit with the leg here, you know.
Morning. You're gonna do that. Does anybody remember the young man's name that just walked in?
Yes, I.
Very good. I was just saying, because we're gonna talk about how do you remember people's names? He's memorable.
Oh, yeah.
All right, one more minute. You feel good about it?
Don't think that.
Oh, yes. Good. You don't have to feel good about it right now. Couple months, you need to go back. All right, all right. Put your pens down, please. That's just a joke. You're looking at that. That's pretty good. Put your pens down. Who wants to win the $5,000 Shark Tank prize though? Got one here.
Okay.
You okay? Yeah. Thank you, thank you. All right, Ryan Grace, what do you do? I'm reading that last one. So what do you do, young man?
So I'm a pastor of a moving church with a sustainable farm, where we model will do sustainable way of life with the community and connect with the people around us.
Very good. You came prepared. You took my, you might have $5,000 written all over that.
You got really good feedback.
You did? I'm sure you did.
They hurt my feelings, but it helped.
I think feedback, if you have a relationship, you trust people, the best thing you can do is give feedback. Phil, hey, hadn't seen you around here, but what do you do?
So this is hard to say out loud. I mean, we did it over there in that table and that table earlier, but now you're asking me to put legs on something that I still vision wise and working through. But
If you're not,
for the sake of our conversation, just you and I, just us
Just
girls.
me and you.
Yeah.
We're at the brewery, talking over some root beer.
I'm hoping to be able to be a part of a ministry that grows, that's not just on Sunday morning, where people can gather and ask questions and hear relevant things about their faith that can take place in a brewery or a bar that might be more advantageous for people asking those questions rather than Sunday morning with church building.
Wow, that's a good church I'd like to be a part of. Where do I learn more?
Well, first I need a check for $100,000 from you.
That's good, just go straight for it.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Don't know.
Okay, good job, you're getting there. I want to pick one more. How about the lovely couple in the back? What do you all do?
I am Rita, pastor of First Philemon Church. In our church, the First Philemon was born out of a desire to meet the needs of the underserved. And praise God, it looks like God is would like to expand the ministry, the church, to becoming a global church that more underserved will be served.
Nice job, you got it. Apple, do you want to add to that? Okay, sure.
Our 90 families go from giving birth of global church, one that crosses geographical boundaries, connected by technology, but really reached and bound by God's word. The global church will spread the gospel from where we are, hands and feet of Jesus, serving, discipling, and transforming lives. Amen.
That's shorter than y'all's prayer. I don't say that to be critical. I remember the first time they texted me the prayer, I was like, trim it down a tad so people can remember. But that's really good. Nice job. Beautiful. So continue to work through that, all right? Because this is really going to be you. It really has to be something that I've said it before, oozes out of your toenails because it's who you are. It's what you're passionate about. It's why you're called to this. Many of you weren't called to go into an established church and hand feed people that are there, right? Off of the menu of the week. Some of you were called to go reach those who are in that mindset. So continue to work through that. We'll talk about it more next time. I also put another tab in there, leverage mission insight. You're always going to want to be looking at that, studying that closely, particularly the Mosaic report, especially if you're in growing areas like we are. Bill, did you know that close to 3/4 of the U.S. population moves an average of once every 5 years? It's crazy, isn't it? But the best way to learn about the community, as you know, is to go do the listening exercise. And we're going to do that next time. Did you tell them that yet, Alyssa? About the listening exercise?
No.
So we're going to practice a little bit of that loop 10, and we're going to go out and we're going to share some things where we get feedback from people within their communities. So study your Mosaic, but get on the streets and listen. Talk a little bit about our affinity. Back when I started this, they said that your affinity is probably 10 to 15 years older or younger than you are. But that's just one aspect. You can still probably use that as a guide. Faith communities are gatherings of people, and you'll need to always be focused on gathering new people, right? That's your role. In gathering people, it's always best to know yourself well. What kind of person are you? Do other people agree with you on that? What kind of people are naturally drawn to you? What kind of people are you normally drawn to? These will help you understand your weak and blind spots. Who do you need to recruit in order to achieve balance? We would love to see more diverse church, a more diverse church, right? So many of you in the room, looking in the mirror this morning, you're white male. Some of you are. Some of you are white female, right? So if you want a diverse church, you have to think about that 20% when you're recruiting or when you're networking. How are you going to get 20% diversity? Maybe it's 20% intergenerational diversity for like Hannah, right? As a lead team would be 20%. 20 years older than you, right? So take a few moments here, write your responses to these questions about your affinity. Who are some people that you are attracted to do this work with? Who are some people who are attracted to do this work with you? And then who do you need to recruit in order to achieve this balance? And so your affinity group, if you're white male, you're probably going to want to find people who are as passionate about diversity, multi-ethnic inclusion, and that type of thing. So think about that, answer those few questions there in the next couple minutes. Who's drawn to you, Nicole? I want to ask you when you take a few more minutes. Are you ready?
I'm still
I'm going to ask you first, so you have some time.
Okay.
Because you know, it's probably not, it might not be who you think. Well, I mean, it's gonna take more time, right? It's gonna definitely take more time. It's to really drill down our affinity. Can't do it in 2 minutes. Colleen, do you have any responses you can share?
Yeah, I was thinking about how I feel drawn to work with women. And I'm from a like almost all female family. And so like that, the intentionality of including male leaders in the work I do specifically, not just to bring another point of view, but to make other people know that they're welcome in that, in a very basic, easy way. Yeah.
Yep, good. So your affinity would be women who share the same, hopefully, putting language to the perspective as you.
Yeah.
Similar. So who would be drawn to you, right? So who would say, that's the kind of church that I want to go to?
I mean, I think we're in a pretty progressive area. I think that, you know, that is a place where my church speaks to, certainly. But we've also seen some people with different theological views coming as well, which I think is a beautiful thing about the Methodist Church, and incorporating those voices as well as we work to reach out to the community.
Are there other female pastors close by?
There are other female pastor. Yeah, actually, yeah. The Presbyterian church nearby has a female pastor. Yeah, but pretty much everyone's a Catholic priest. So just being a female pastor in a very, very Catholic area, I think says a lot about our church. Yeah.
So you do offer something different, right? Female-led, United Methodist, social justice focused. So I think there's some uniqueness about this that you can really grasp when you start this new expression. Those things, because like you said, it's either Catholic, male-dominated Catholic church, or what else you got, right? And there are plenty of people in that area, I think, to get a critical mass around that vision. So
Yeah. Thanks, Brad.
very good. All right. I bought you some time.
Thank you. What question am I answering?
Who are you? Who's your affinity?
So I am a crazy, radical, insane person who thinks outside of the box and is innovative. This came from her.
We have confirmation. of
Yes,
that.
that's confirmation of that. And it appears as though in my ministry, I am attracting women who are 55 to 70, who are tired of the way things are and are excited to create change, as well as millennial, non-binary, and gay male activists, as well as conservative male pastors. Do not ask me why.
I didn't see that one coming.
Yeah.
The last one.
Most of my prayer team is actually conservative male pastors for this ministry.
Not evangelical, but conservative male.
Yes.
Okay. So you think that, okay, so that they're drawn to what you're doing, is what you're saying. That's the goal, right?
They seem to show up wherever I am, but like, it's just, I mean, I'm the only female pastor in my area. So
Yeah, this is very unique.
they kind of like to watch what I'm doing.
Because you're unpredictable, it sounds like. So if the area you're in, state the area that you're planting in.
The east side of Cincinnati.
Theologically speaking, or you can talk politically, is it progressive or is it conservative?
Conservative, politically, somewhat socially moderate.
So there would be some room for something new like that.
Yeah.
And you could have it.
And there's religious conservatism, but there is most of the people who are religious liberal go to Cincinnati, like the center of Cincinnati or the west side of Cincinnati, because that's where they find space that's available.
Okay. So you're the only show in town that offers a different flavor. You think it?
There's some others that are trying.
You're close to Crossroads? Yeah.
On
Crossroads,
the other end of the strip mall from Crossroads.
okay, that's bold. Crossroads being the largest church in America as of last report and the fastest growing church in America. 40,000 people, 13 campuses in Cincinnati and Kentucky. It's coming to Columbus. So you would be offering an alternative to that.
Well, they were also recently outed in Cincinnati as not being LGBTQ friendly.
So people that were more interested in that theology, you're ready. People that aren't, they have a choice to stay at a crossroads. And that's one of the challenges that we see in studying the church across America is people have established relationships, hard for them to leave, even if they disagree with the pastor. Right?
We also see, just as a study in my ministry of being in Cincinnati, we see people go to Crossroads as new believers, like they are inspired by the vision, the excitement, the everything. They go, they attend, they start to do Bible studies maybe a little bit and get deeper in their relationship. And then they find that they're missing something and they come back out to the smaller local denominational and non-denominational congregations. So it's not, they are growing, but they're not maintaining, they're just making new disciples constantly, and then people fall off the edges.
The pastor at Crossroads told me, I have a video, that they do a great job of attracting people in, they just can't. They haven't figured out a system yet to make that feel.
It always been like the greatest thing about church planting that we can tell established churches is that, hey, we'll reach new people. And once they need to go deep or realize that, if they're looking for something different or more that we can't offer, then they're gonna go to your church down the street. Because they know someone, or you offer something that we don't offer, so.
What she said, Colleen, she was talking about Tim Keller's book, Center Church or something.
Yeah, that was in his church plant in Redeemer's church planting. Yeah.
Yeah, I heard him say on the podcast that every city or town really needs one mega church. Maybe for that reason you just described, but really there needs to be a lot of smaller churches for this, I guess, for the ecosystem of the community. I just say leave the numbers up to God though, right? Don't try to put our own lids on it, like artificial. This is getting too big. I'm not comfortable. I'm not equipped. That's when you multiply your start, right? All right, let's move on. Good job. You're getting there. Got to keep drilling it down. You're getting there.
I'm all over the place.
Let's move on. Continue to do the work on that. It's just going to go in your greenhouse binder that hopefully you'll get at some point this year. Do you have a binder yet? We had official greenhouse binders back in the day, but due to budget cuts, we have to buy them at Staples and bring it to you. So Perry and I were working, getting it for your handouts. So continue to work on it. Alyssa, Anne Marie, Dave, they got a big, thick one. You just keep adding it. Hers, I don't know about theirs, but hers is out, was out all the time. So they'll kind of be your flavor going forward. All right, next thing, we're going to talk briefly about cultural competency because I know that most of you are already starting to meet with your guides. And I think you could kind of maybe see some reflections of where you're at, where you thought you might be in that continuum, and some areas that we all could work on. But I'm going to talk about it from the standpoint of church, non-church, cultural competency there. Connecting with new people will require communicating with individuals who are culturally different than us. While often these differences may be recognized in language, dress, accent, or clothing, you'll encounter differences that may not be as noticeable. One of the greatest challenges for ministry leaders is communicating with people who are not church insiders. We have our own intimidating language, routines, and beliefs that are confusing to those who aren't part of a church culture. Self-awareness and growth in this area are vital to reaching an unreached audience. Working with your ID guide will help, for sure. If your goal is to connect with new people, you'll need to communicate across this cultural divide. You must learn their perspectives and perceptions, get inside their hearts and their heads, and get out of our bubble. They might respect us, but they don't trust us yet. And this takes time. Nothing moves faster than the speed of trust, right? So the communities are primarily skeptical of us already. And so it just takes time. I think I mentioned this in session 1. Every community has a minimum of 2 cultures, church and non-church, right? And from a hospitality standpoint, we should be willing to go into their world, learn their language. But yet, almost a majority of the churches that I walk into, traditional service more than modern, but there's very much insider language where we don't take into consideration that first time guest, what it even means, what we're saying even means, right? How it could come across to them. We'll talk about this in session 6, I think, but secret worshipers are very valuable. They've always been valuable for me. I used to pay people $25, non-church, school teachers, whatever, come in, give me your perspective. What do you think? That's really the best feedback you're going to get. I think, so I used to have Baptist friends that would come in and I got to check out and see what's going on there. And they would tell me what was weird about the service, why we did this. I was like, thank you, I appreciate it, but you're not our target audience. We're not really trying to reach you. We're not trying to steal you. So most of us have been in the bubble for a long time. Some of us are raised in the bubble. Here I am. It's really, you got to figure out a way to get outside of that, especially if you've been with church people in churches that haven't really grown in a long time. You've got to figure out how to do that. And some of the listening exercise responses will help us to kind of recalibrate maybe. One of my favorite, we have to become an official party crasher. You've got to get yourself invited to things. You're going to do a new thing. You got to get yourself into some circles. I couldn't say this 2 years ago on Zoom at the beginning of the pandemic, but we're coming out of it now. So you've got to figure out how to get in places to meet a lot of people and to just really get names of people. And so let's talk about that, getting the names, because while you have to be getting the names of people, meeting new people, your core group / launch team will need to be copying the leader. I want to back up just a second in your notes. If your goal is to have a sustainable new faith community of 200 in worship within 3 to 5 years, you'll need to be making at least 20 new contacts a week during the pre-launch gathering phase. Does that sound fun?
Yes. Exhausting.
Introverts, be aware. But if, you know, that's just if you want to have a sustainable church of 200. Adjust your formula for the goals. We used to say 20 new contacts a week, pre-launch, 10 for the rest of your life. Because we forget to do that. We forget to go out of the church and meet people. So take a couple minutes. You see the questions there. What do you enjoy doing that you would feel confident inviting a new person to do with you? Where can you see a need in your community that you believe can positively impact with you by others? I see those questions. What's up, Reverend? I heard you lit us up this morning. Thank you for hosting. Sending Ashton to help.
Well, it is a prayer, we're praying out loud, and Ashton is in this group a year from now.
Yeah,
So I'm just speaking that as a result.
I already got it on the list, so he's on.
Amen.
So take about maybe 3 or 4 minutes, answer those 2 questions.
What do you enjoy doing? That you would feel confident inviting, drinking beer?
Yeah. Finishing.
Finishing, yes. This is true.
And we looked at the textures, what it's like. Beer boys.
All right. Norm, what do you enjoy doing that you would feel confident inviting a new person to?
Huh?
Outdoor activities.
Yeah. Good. Yes, on patios. Yes. One page.
You get my examples in here.
Assuming you have more details to that.
Yeah.
To work on. All right. How about Mary? What do you enjoy doing that you would feel confident inviting someone to?
Oh, I do a lot of talking and lunches with folks tonight. I just walk there with me, station. And I try to find opportunities and events that other nonprofits are offering and I try to get into them. So I can,
Very good. Very good. Nico?
It's a those big events, anything like a full gathering, barbecue, celebration, birthday parties, baby shower.
All things that you enjoy doing.
Something that brings people together for a common purpose. Have fun.
Good, good. Becky, where can you see a need in your community that you believe can positively impact and to which you can invite others to join your effort? More pride.
In big letters, big grandmother.
So more pride. Touch rate events. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, we don't have enough. We don't have enough community activities. We don't have any community activities. for them.
Sounds like you got an opportunity. The door's open for you. Very good. All right, so we're gonna move on and talk about developing your system. You know what I'm talking about when I say that? How will you
Figure
meet
it out.
20 new people each week? Especially if you already have. That you're having to attend to. So what has always been helpful for me, and I've taught this in other classes and seminars as well, but it's a very common practice among church planters, is as you're out networking, you're sharing your vision, you're going to encounter people who will be maybe open to the idea of being a part of this new thing, and some of them won't be. So, for example, I would meet Jason and I would share a little bit about the vision, see if it's something that he lit up about. I would say, does this sounds like something you can get excited about? No, not really. I already have a church. Okay, do you know anybody else that could get excited about it? Or can I ask you to pray about it, pray for it? Or can you make a donation? So everybody you meet in terms of this networking thing, when you start sharing the vision, you're going to keep your own record of it. You're going to say, okay, yes, they are. I'm going to add you to my email list. I'm going to keep you informed. So far, I haven't gotten a lot of emails from you all with your prayer. I thought for sure I would be on your prayer team. You would send me your greenhouse prayer and ask me to join you on that. Maybe even ask me to make a donation. So far, I've only got this. So.
Like when you say your phrase again, that you're like, hey, I just shared my vision with you, then what?
Yeah. So I'd be like, okay, hey, that's my vision. Does this sound like something that you would consider being a part of? I've already got a church. Okay, well, do you know anybody that would get excited about progressive faith community? Yeah, I've got lots of friends. Can you introduce me to them? Can I take them out to lunch? That's one option. Another option is not interested. Okay, can I ask you to just join us in prayer? I'll add you to the email list for some witness. And then, of course, the last thing is this something that you feel like you could invest in? You know, you're going to another church, but it's something that you can invest in. So you're going to keep track of everybody that you meet. You're going to add them. If they're just a no, committed, I've been going here 20 years, don't waste your time on necessarily adding them to your database. But you need to have your yeses and your maybes. Keep track of them. Okay, your yeses, maybes, they're going to get your weekly emails. Hey, this is my prayer. This is how I've seen God working. Thank you for praying for it. Hey, we're trying to raise $50,000. We've got somebody that'll match it. Can you consider giving? That kind of thing. So this is going to be kind of your outlet to really expand your support. So there are apps. I've listed a few apps on your handout that you could use to track it. But you could also use just a notebook if you would like. But everybody you meet and share the vision with, and at some point, you'll be sharing the vision with everybody you meet. Hey, what do you do? Hey, Phil, what do you do? Well, this is what I'm doing. I've got 3 different expressions, 3 breweries on this area. That sounds like something that you'd want to be a part of. No, not really. I go to Life Point. Okay, do you know anybody that wants to consider being a part of a community like that? They're always going to have some context for you. And you can't probably chase them all down. What you can do is have a little gathering, a lunch or a dinner, and share it with a group of people. It's going to be the most efficient way. Does that make sense? So over the next 2 weeks, you're gonna think about your own system. Yeses, nos, maybe. You may add another column of potential donor. Right? Or referral. You can build your own system. I would always suggest keeping it simple. And like Colleen's situation, she's gonna have just a few people within her church that will be interested. They'll know people too outside the church that'll say, I'd like to go to something like that in the local brewery. Let me share more about that with you. All right. So set your goals, and create your disciplines. No one ever drifts toward the mission or your goals. It takes discipline, intentionality, and strategy to hold yourself accountable. Because to do this, you have to be disciplined. Yeah.
Question
Yeah.
for the back. So those of us who are in established churches, who are still serving that congregation all the while launching things, starting things, beginning things. I love networking. I hate sitting at my desk at church. I don't like my office. It's not that I don't like my office. It's a dumping ground for stuff. That is the purpose of it. It should not be used for anything else, in my opinion, other than meetings and Bible studies. The congregation, the established traditional congregation, thinks that I should be in said office like 24 hours a day, 7 days a week at their beck and call.
Sure. Yeah.
Without being me responding to that, because I know I can't be me responding to that. How do we help people to understand that what we're doing is for, like, we're launching this to grow?
It's in the Bible. It's in the Bible, right?
Okay, well, that, I gotta get a little more than that.
Well, then, I'm just saying, it's in the Bible. We shouldn't have to explain it, but then you'll get people saying, that's fine that it's in the Bible, but we'll pay you to be here with us.
For me.
So are you full-time there? What's the arrangement? So you're still full-time at Batavia? Just kind of doing this as a side hustle then? Out of Batavia?
Hours with you. It's, and
So then,
many of, some of our income is coming through the for Batavia. Like, we're actually getting to a place where we're starting to grow.
you're funding them.
We're starting to finance some things and completely 100% in terms of seed, self-sufficient. But also getting more than what we are spending in on a weekly, monthly basis.
I see a couple of possible options, and at some point, having the Diaz and or myself say, because of what we're investing in, the goal to do, the greenhouse thing, we're investing in you right now. We're asking you to give at least 25% of your time to being out in the community. So then you can have some clear boundaries and expectations instead of everybody, if they don't know what's going on, they're going to fill in their blanks with what they have going on. And you're going to set yourself up for headaches. So at some point, clear defining boundary lines would be good. Right? So maybe over the next couple of weeks, kind of track it yourself and say, it's like I'm spending about 20% of my time out there, 80% of my time with the established church. Okay, so I think just establishing some realistic numbers will be good. That way you're not guessing and assuming either, so you can be fair to everyone. Is that a good next step?
It's the next step. I'll figure it out.
I get you a little bit, maybe freedom. All right, very good.
Thank you.
Yep.
Well, also finding those key folks within the congregation who can be your voice and help explain what's going on to those folks who may have a vision that might not necessarily be the way, but then allow for that connection. So it's not always a good thing. It's other. Yeah. Isn't it?
I come to the board early, locked out there in, then our
Almost territorially dependent.
but like this,
Yeah,
So it's kind of like, you're kind of doing what Colleen told us to do. In reality, you're established group of people. How many are there?
Batavia, about 30, 35.
Colleen, how many are average attendance there now?
50-ish, 55.
So you're kind of slivering off, doing this new expression. You get to maybe do that as well, so. Yeah, every situation is different. I think Colleen, they may have a little bit of money there. I'm not mistaken, a little bit. Yours isn't as probably financially healthy as,
Pretty gosh darn financially healthy.
okay,
With 35 people, they're supporting the full head back
it's pretty good,
with benefits and housing.
which is why they want you there all the time.
Which is why.
Very nice challenge. They have money in them. I thought you told me, maybe it was the other church.
It was good.
So I think there's no, clear cut solution to any situation. That's why Alyssa wanted me to remind you all last time, she was going to remind you, a big part of my responsibility is to support you on an individual personal basis, helping navigate your situation in your context. Do you want to say more about that, Alyssa?
And your personal life, so Brad is your advocate. Someone who can be here with you for the next 5 years, for good or bad. Even when you're really going with them.
Oh, that's
Special relationship you guys.
And when you do really good, you talk to you for hours on the phone, help you figure it out.
I think that Alyssa and Emery and Dave, I like to think that that's just, I'm invested in it, I'm passionate about it, so. But everybody's different, like I gotta keep going back to Nico's situation, I gotta call the bishop's office the day after we interviewed him about the situation. I was like, back off of him, give him a little more. Anyway,
But I did want to say, I wanted Brad to be upfront, which you are this week. Because I think it's really important for people who are starting on this journey to know that you have Brad, he's not just someone who's running this cohort and you're not going to see him ever again after May, but he's someone who's going to walk with you, through all of it and help you figure it out and sacrifice to help all of us figure it out. Personally, that was very meaningful for us. And just, I know it's needed church meeting, that there's one at the conference office, who's gonna calm all of the BS's down when they don't get it. And go to bat for you and then show up at all your services. Not all of them, so. He's here for all of you. That's what I wanted. I wanted you guys to know that because you're trying really hard.
I'll also try to do the same for you, Kelly. I don't know how that'll happen. Yeah.
I just want to validate this real quick because her and Joe left the church that I served at to a plant. And from the outside looking in, I really didn't know a lot what was going on, except God called me to a vision and pursue it and it's here, right? But from the outside looking in, it just seemed like it was the easiest thing they ever did. And there was no headache, no stress, no struggle. Boom, doing it. So now that I know there was struggle, I guess I'm just validating you based on what Alyssa said because, yeah.
Thank you. It just takes a lot of trust.
Yeah, you made it look easy externally, but now knowing that they can do much of an internal struggle, you're a pretty cool guy, I guess.
Well, thank you. Appreciate that. I'll say it takes trust. Y'all don't know me that well, so you have to earn it. It was a long year that first year for those kids. Joe almost wouldn't be here today. And Anne-Marie too, and Dave. So anyway, I just think our cabinet has gotten to a really good point where they're supportive of, if you can dream it, you can do it. And this morning, the cabinet approved, this isn't public yet, but a very large endowment to put towards new faith communities. 6 years ago when I got here, it wouldn't have been taken serious, but now it's we've got to be reimagining the church. So thank you for that. Coming from someone that just quit working in the office, I'm honored by that.
I think it's important for us to know, because other conference-led programs don't act like that. Yeah. So, you know, I think for me, I don't want to bother you because you are out there at conference office. But to know that that's not what it is. That it's different. At least in theory, but kind of like in practice, that it's different, and it's not like other previous conference programs that may have not been that.
They invested in a full-time person. So like that probably helped. Them having to take it serious, so. But I'll try to continue to.
Been a lot of pressure.
I'm gonna make the voice. I'm gonna make it happen. That's right. That's right. Thank you. That's right. For sure. Like you said, that first year, I kind of had to do it. I didn't really know anyone, so I wrote it. And Dave still makes fun of it because I'm trying to pack a lot of information in a little bit of time. It's like, we had to do that. All right, so speaking of that, we've got to keep going. Thank you for that. Again, a lot of questions I get, how do you meet new people in starting a new church? How do you put yourself in situations? How do you introduce yourself? I've laid out a few things there for you to read later. We're about to get on Zoom. So when meeting new people, whether introverted or extroverted, because I know everyone is represented in this room, categories, it'll be important to learn to get good at meeting new people. Otherwise, you're going to experience a failure to thrive. Or it's going to become an inward focused small group. I mean, that's really, when I got here to West Ohio, we'd started a few new churches and there were probably 30 to 40 people. Nothing wrong with that, but funding them at the level that we were funding them, it just wasn't economic, it wasn't good stewardship, right? So we had to really talk about assessing risk management. No two churches are the same. You don't need the same amount as someone else, right? So what do you bring to the table? That kind of thing. So I like to think my own personal philosophy, it gets me in trouble often, is the three most important people in my life: God, family, and whoever I'm with. Makes me late oftentimes. Okay? But know that I'm going to be late for my next meeting because I spent that time with you. So, and then how to win friends and influence people. Still a great book. I'm not going to go through all of that, but read that at your leisure. Put that on a cheat card. Keep that in your vehicle. And just remember that. It's really helpful reference for me still today. The last one, always follow up. I like to say that the riches are in the niches, but the fortune is at the follow up. Most people don't follow up. Even when I was in a local church, first time guest, they heard from me while they were eating lunch that day. Even if the service was bad, they still were going to be impressed by our follow up because they were noticed. So no matter what, I probably texted all of you all over the course of maybe just because I want to follow up. I want to follow up. Your fundraising, follow up. Your first time meeting someone, get their number. Hey, it was a great meeting. I'm telling you, this is the stat, over 90% of the people, this probably goes to churches who they don't follow up. So if you can just be disciplined about following up, you're going to stand out. You're going to get some attention. And then always say thank you. I would say negativity, pessimism, and cynicism are not fruits of the Spirit. I'll even add, okay, negativity, pessimism, cynicism, and criticizing your denomination on social media are not fruits of the Spirit. Now, go ahead and criticize your denomination. Unchurched people are not going to be attracted to that. They may not even know what's going on in your denomination. That's probably why they left the church. And we're putting it out there saying how bad things are. One of the largest Methodist churches in America is right here in Ohio, I had a conversation with that pastor 4 years ago. And he's like, we're growing 30% every year, we'll leave it to the denomination. And I was like, you have the flame of cross on your sign. You're growing 30%. Is that really affecting you right now? The issue is never really the issue, right? So you do what you want with it, but to put stuff like that out there, especially if you're trying to start something new. And I'm not monitoring your social media. I love being friends with you, but I'm just saying it can work against what you're trying to do. So my neighbors could care less about this. They're gonna see it on the news in 2 years, I guess, when they explain it. But I'm like, they can care, they don't care. So anyway, I think Danny, you're sending that same link.
I sent it to you.
I forwarded it to him. He's joining us from Exponential today, Danny Lieberger. Where Jason Harris is not joining us from, right, Colleen? That's, you know, that's an excused absence. That's a good event, Exponential. So as I said, Danny's planted a church recently. It's doing really well. He's not in seminary. He's got some Ohio roots, trying to recruit him back here to plant. But he just felt called to stay there. I'll keep going until we want to. All right, let's go to that next question. Are you comfortable meeting new people? Who was the last new person you met and how did that happen? And I got to answer that myself too. Are you comfortable meeting new people? Who was the last new person that you met? Write those answers down in those spaces. We get him up there, maybe.
You want to switch now?
Yeah, we can do that. We'll take a break after his. All right, so are you comfortable meeting new people? You chose that.
Very much so, yes.
You used to be a banker, didn't
Here it is.
He's still that.
you? You did, okay. We'll talk later then. I got a vision I need to share with you.
We get the big part.
How about you, Jason, sort of #1 salesman in the Midwest for Peterbilt, right?
Yeah.
It's not ever gonna brag, but.
No, yeah, I enjoyed it. Yeah.
Okay. Who was the last new person you met and how did that happen? Anyone?
Therapy.
Tell them about Jesus.
I had a long conversation about religion.
And where do you categorize them in your imaginary system?
I'm hoping to see her again on Thursday and kind of see if we can engage further, especially after hearing this.
Did you, get her email address?
No, that would not be something I want to be involved.
You want to keep you informed of how this thing develops. Okay. Right.
Great.
Man, Andy Burns did a really good job with those emails. Hey, Danny. You can't see me, but we see you.
What's happening?
Hey, what's up, man? You look tan, like you're in Florida, hanging out.
I'm living the dream right now, living my best life.
He's a really funny guy too, so just so you know, he's probably joking about that, but serious. Hey, this is the greenhouse, which I think you know a little bit about. Speaker there, I guess. This is the greenhouse. I think you know a little bit about it because we tried to recruit you into it a couple of years ago. Remember that?
I do.
God instead of me. It looks like it worked out. So this is about 12 to 14 people from West Ohio who are coming in with varying different ideas for new faith communities. We also have a pastor from Louisiana, Colleen Buchter, who is going through the greenhouse. And there's another one from Louisiana that's in the greenhouse, but he's with you in Florida right now. So anyway, we're talking this week about networking, meeting new people, how to do that, kind of coming out of the pandemic. And so we wanted to hear a little bit from you over the next half hour, leaving a little room for some questions probably as well. And but first of all, if you could just tell them a little bit about yourself, your new church, when you launched it, how that's going, vision on that and all that. But thanks for joining us.
Yeah. So as Brad said, I'm Danny Liebarger. I'm the pastor of a new church called The Well. That started, I was appointed in July, on July 1st, but our first official Sunday was December 5th. And so we've only really been around just for a couple months now at this point, but we meet weekly on Sunday mornings at a local brewery, Good News Brewing Company. The owner and I got lunch maybe a couple months before, or a couple of years ago rather, and just kind of started dreaming about what would it look like to start a church in a place that people are already having spiritual conversations that would engage people that would maybe never step foot inside of a regular church building. And so we hosted like some pop-up events we called Flights in Faith, where we'd have like kind of a panel discussion on faith or religion, or questions that like people are already asking in bars, like why do bad things happen to good people? And then a year ago now a year ago this coming Easter, they hosted an Easter service, and we just said, hey, who would be interested in doing this more regularly? Like who would be interested in launching a community that is fiercely focused on people that are disinterested in religion, that have been a part of the nuns that have never been in church, or the people that have been hurt and burned by the church that are in the duns. And so from that last Easter till now, what we've just been doing is gathering contact information from people. We've been launching small groups. We've been launching kind of micro groups around town and doing some events, all leading up to that first launch on that December 5th. And so now we're in a space where we're trying to figure out what to do next, because we've maxed out the capacity of the building we're in. It's an indoor-outdoor space. And so in the summer, we can get like 200 people, but in the winter, we can only get about 100 or so people in the building. And so now for Easter, like our plan this year is we're actually doing Easter in 4 different locations around our region to try to host 4 different services at different times, because people are just continuing to invite, like 10 weeks in or whatever. Now we just have this amazing invitational energy that people have finally kind of grasped a hold of. And so we're in this space now. It's like we have to start creating literal seats in space, because if everyone invited a friend on the same weekend and only 50% of those people would come, we'd have a seat for like 2 of them. And so we're trying to now figure out what we're going to do with that. So, and right now it's just me and one other staff person. So I have a part-time worship leader, and she's been one of the greatest blessings because her in like evangelical energy is outstanding. We don't have an office, and so we work out of the brewery or we work out of coffee shops. And she's from Illinois, so moved here for this job. And a month after she got here, I met her for one of our meetings in a coffee shop we work out of. And I kid you not, like the place had 30 people in it. And she knew everyone by name after just working out of there for a month. And that's the kind of stuff we've been doing to try to really invest in our community. Because St. Charles County, where we are, it's one of the fastest growing counties in Missouri, but it's just sprawling. It's urban, it's suburban, it's rural, and it's just really spread out. And so we've had to do a lot of relational work because everyone's driving 15 to 30 minutes to get to us. We have people that drive 40 minutes to get to us. And so we've really had to try to get to know people and build those connections, launching micro communities where we can. We're right off a trail that probably has hundreds of people bike or run it every day. And so I actually just met with, and Brad, help me with his name. He's the guy who's the Fresh Expressions person. What's this guy's name? He runs Fresh Expressions, but he's in the Florida annual conference. But him and I just started talking about kind of like a new kind of micro community we're thinking about launching out of our church, of like a running church, something like that. And so we're trying to get even out of what we're doing in some ways to do something a little more outside the box. And fresh expression wise, because we can already see like the bend to going into being even traditional, even though we're in a non-traditional space. So we're always trying to push that envelope forward. So yeah, that's a little bit about like us and where we're at now. Like I feel like we're learning something new every day just because we're so brand new. But yeah, is there anything else I can share that would be helpful, Brad?
Yeah, we got you for 30 minutes, so we're going to take advantage of that. Yeah, anybody have any immediate questions? I'd like to know, so this is a standalone, it's not a campus of any parent church, right?
Yeah, we were kind of a parachute drop out of, we were in like a pocket where there's just no United Methodist presence, but the houses keep popping up and there's just community growing, but there's no United Methodist presence there. And so we initially thought that it might be a campus of somewhere else, but where, at least for our religious demographic, starting something brand new that didn't have a narrative already attached to it was really important for what the people in our community were looking for. It doesn't mean there's like an inherent distrust of anything that was around us, but as we walked the campus route, we realized it just wasn't going to be the one that was going to be the most fruitful in our region.
So how long did you start your pre-launch phase? Like you started gathering people, building up the launch. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, we, so like I said, I was appointed on July 1st, and really other than that one Easter service, I wasn't, because I was appointed as an associate pastor at another church. And so I had my hands pretty full there, but I, at least in just the circles I naturally ran in, had a lot of friends that were connected and that were in the unchurched community that were very disinterested in ever coming to the church that I currently worked at. And so, but I continued to kind of be in relationship with them. And what I did for my little season that I was there is I probably led 2 or 4 small groups of those groups of people, just to kind of always stay connected with them. We went through a study called Reclaim that was kind of like an outside look at kind of reclaiming the rhythms and the way of Jesus and kind of the ancient way of church. And it was something that was pretty accessible. Like we thought about like, should I do a study on Acts because we want to start something, or like pick Galatians or whatever. And we felt like something that was not tied to a denomination or tied to like a church leadership book or tied to anything like that, just like helping people reclaim the essentials of the faith was really important for them. And so we led all of our groups through that. But then on July 1, when we started, our first preview service was August something, the first Sunday in August. And we did one service in August, one the next month, and then we did 2 more than following 2 months before launching. And so 6 in total. And for us, like one of the things I realized early on, and like our community was so hungry for a church that like, and I don't think this is everyone's experience, because I know tons of people that do previews. I have a friend that just launched another church and they did a long season of previews. Our launch day was our first preview. And if hindsight being 2020, like we really should have just launched weekly worship that first time, because we built up a lot of momentum and then we would lose it because we waited a month to meet again. And people were just ready to start meeting and breaking off into community together in that sort of way. And so once we started meeting weekly in December, that's like when the pedal really like went to the ground. And I felt like our momentum was moving, because for us, previews were a season for us to like get things technically right, like sound wise, and what were our systems to assimilate people and connect people, and what are we going to offer for kids. We did like a different thing for kids ministry every single week until we figured out work. And now we actually don't do anything. We like give parents activity bags when they walk in, and that are kind of connected to what we're talking about, and they color some of them. Like a kid list last week brought me a picture that was like a visual representation of kind of like our key takeaway. And so we've kind of just engaged families in that way. But yeah, our pre-launch phase was pretty quick. Like once I was appointed, I found about 30 people that I knew were committed. I had about 180 people that I had on a contact list that I'd been collecting for like the last 5 years of people that I thought would be interested if I ever did get appointed to start a church. And I found the 30 of those that were really invested, and 15 of which I invited in to kind of be on our inner launch team. And then we would kind of continue to expand that. Then I think it grew to about 30 or 40 that met once a month in between our preview services. And so our previews were kind of like high level vision casting of like, hey, who do we want to be as a community? Why does Missouri, or why does St. Louis need like an 81st United Methodist Church? Why are we launching this? That's what our previews were for and what we were trying to meet felt need-wise in the community. Our launch team stuff was much more like trying to have them understand our DNA of what, not just why we were existing, but how they were key participants in articulating that, whether it was through ways they were serving in a thing like hospitality or in the band, or what does it look like to be connected to people in their community and do some relational evangelism that will hopefully connect people to the well. So I would say if I was probably not actually the best like example of pre-launch stuff, because I feel like we ran in super fast and then we started and we've been trying to catch up to where we've been since then. It just seemed like I got appointed and we started running. And so I don't know if we needed more lead time or not, but God blessed us. But yeah, the lesson I learned in that was our first preview was our real launch, and people were then just like ready for us to start meeting weekly. And that's where we started to see the uptick, was when we finally started meeting again every single week. That's when people were ready to invite their friends, were ready to plug into small groups, were ready to start serving, were ready to start doing those things. It was much harder to get investment when we were on a monthly basis, even if we were pushing it as, hey, be a part of launching this cool new thing. They were much more ready once the cool new thing existed every single week. So I don't know if that answers your question. I'm a verbal processor, so I say things in like a lot of words that you could say in like 5. But that's, I hope that answers your question.
That's really great and helpful. So I have a couple of questions that y'all be thinking about from your own perspective. You're an elder in the Missouri United Methodist, or Missouri United Methodist Conference, right? Elder.
Yeah.
So tell me about funding for that type of model, parachute plan. What did they give you? What have you raised on your own? How are the folks looking?
Yeah, so our, you're a little like muted, but I think you asked me, tell me about the funding, correct? That's what you just asked me?
Yes.
Yeah,
Sorry.
so, no, you're all right. So so right now the well is funded over 4 years for $350,000 is how we're funding it. So we taper it down every year. So this first year was kind of our startup year. The conference committed $100,000 in that first year. And I don't have the numbers right in front of me, but it tapers off significantly over 4 years. And so what I did, our conference hadn't started a church parachute drop wise in a long time. And we were kind of still trying to figure out or go back to what some of our best practices were, what's our checklist, like what are the things we're doing, how do we want to fund it? So what I did, and I'm like a aim for the stars kind of person, so I want to ask high. And so I actually looked at like all the planting documents from West Ohio. I looked at places in other conferences and even outside the Methodist world. And I said, like, what does the church need? Like, what is my church of my kind of stature going to need, or what our plan is? What does our region look like? And how does that affect? And so I did as much research as I could on the financial side of things to figure out like what was going to make us financially viable. And then when I pitched it, I asked for $100,000 more than what that was, just knowing that they would probably knock it down a little bit. And so, but I kind of tried to do as much like research as I could in that, knowing that for us, our operating budget's like a little different. Right now, our only cost is my salary and our worship leader's salary. And then whatever the other kind of negligible startup costs were, like soundboards and speakers and those sorts of things. Because we don't pay rent where we're at. The bar actually ties to us $1,000 a month to use their space. And so we're making money being there rather than spending money, which is a part of our model. And so our hope is to keep our costs as low as possible. And so our request in funding was saying in our first 4 years, we're hoping to have 4 different places that we're worshiping weekly. And that's what our plan is for that money. So whether we're using it staffing wise or equipment wise, or to get something off the ground, and trying to keep our costs kind of as low as possible in that. But So I think, but when I came into the conference, Missouri conference, our standard was kind of $150,000 for a church that was starting like a campus or something like that. But we hadn't started a new thing in a while. And so I tried to find as much kind of information around as I could. And it's been good for us. And it helps like trying to figure out like how we're forecasting financially for the future, and not just looking like how are we like trying to get through this first year or survive this year, but really putting into our financial assessment, like how is this going to help us be the church we feel like deeply believe that God is calling us to be in the next 5 or 6 years down the road, and start positioning ourselves for that. And so, yeah, and then this was not a part of our initial funding, but we're kind of going through some kind of reorganization within our conference as far as districts go. And so we requested like another $50,000 just a little bit ago that we got. And so now I guess we're at $350,000 over 4 years, which that now we're going to help kind of, as we think about a future staff person to kind of help lead whatever our next location is going to be, which our plan is to launch out of whatever has the most momentum, a second location. So whatever our Easter service has the most momentum, we're going to try to have something launched weekly by the August that's upcoming. And so that's what that kind of $50,000 we're trying to put towards in that regard.
Very cool. Very cool. Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
All right. Any questions for Danny?
Yeah.
Yes.
How did you explain the whole $1,000 of the bar is giving you? I mean, how did that come about that you convinced a bar owner that you were a good investment versus them asking you for rent to utilize their space?
Yeah, I'm going to repeat this back to you to make sure I heard it. Are you saying, how did I get them to not charge us rent and instead give us money in return?
Yes.
Yeah. So yeah, we, first and foremost, he's someone that I've built a friendship with. And so that's been like a really important part for us. But the two other co-owners, we sat down and we just said like, they deeply, deeply want people to know Jesus as much as I do in their region. Their brewery is called Good News Brewing. And so they opened it to share good news and good pizza and good beer with people. And that's what they're doing. And so this is kind of the wing of that. Their initial idea actually was they wanted to hire me to be what they called their brew pastor. And so to be the person to like manage their bar and then ran a service whenever they needed one. And we kind of went from that idea, which was their initial hope, to say like, well, let's like actually sink resources into this and make this our primary thing. But I would say, I mean, this is not like the coolest or most profound answer, but we're both good friends with the deeply held and connected vision for what we think God wants to do in our region. And they feel like it's the most faithful way for them to steward their organization's funds is to commit financially to what we're doing, so that the Well isn't trying to pinch together pennies to figure out how to do something compelling today, but to really help resource us again for what we believe God is calling us to in the future. And so on a practical level, there's two owners. One of them is, I would say, he's like one of our associate pastors, essentially. I have him preach once a month. He helps me out, lead things. And then the other one sits on my board and helps us make decisions at a high level. And so I've engaged both of them at levels to make ministry happen and to give them permission to lead in the ways that God has equipped them. And I think by doing that, not only is it then a connection of, hey, we're both on the same mission and vision for this, but they feel like they're active participants in driving that mission and vision forward. And so, yeah, I think like taking some of the stuff from just our national relational connection, but then putting them in places where they felt like they could really be kind of effective in articulating the gospel in both of their unique ways. One of them is hyper introverted and has no desire to ever have human interaction. And so he's the one that's on my board, and I get to interact. He gets to interact with 4 people and have like meaningful conversations there and help shape vision. And the other one is like a doctorate of education, and he was an educator and a superintendent for several years and decided he'd rather own a bar instead. And he loves to be in front of people, and he articulates the gospel in a really profound but unique way. And so he said, let's put you in this space. And so, yeah, that's a long form way of answering like we built a lot of relational kind of cachet together, and then spent some time discerning like where is your best seat on the bus to have an effective way to help move this church forward.
So I have a question about, you said Easter, y'all are going to have worship at a few different locations.
Yeah.
Tell me how this like brew house, Good News Brewery sounds amazing, and you had this relational capital. How have you chosen other places? And how might that, if you're thinking of, you know, whichever one has the best attendance at Easter, kind of going from there, how's that looking different from what you have at the brewery?
Yeah, that's a good question. So the other 3 locations are similar in nature, and one is a maker space that I'm friends with the owner, and they're like, hey, we would love you. We would like, they deeply want to have a church in their location because they have friends that would never set foot in a church, but would come to a place like that. And so they reach out to me and like, hey, would you do this? And that was actually the first step in that process. And I was like, well, this would be interesting. Like, are there more places like this? And so, but that space can maybe only hold 40 people. So it'll be a much more small service, very intimate. The other place that reached out is we've had this community of stand-up comedians that have found our church and found it very compelling. And the owner of the comedy club has started coming to our church. And he is very similar. He's like, grew up in the church. I was hurt by the church. I had no desire to become back. One of my comedians invited me. And now he has this really unique space where he's not only engaging a unique community of comedians, but he has a space that is, again, very non-threatening and is willing and hoping that we use the space without charging us. And so that was the other one. And then the third one, we probably have a group of like 30 or so people that live in a very rural area, but that are a part of the LGBTQ community that haven't found a church they feel like they can really engage in. And they said, hey, could you do a service for 30 or 40 of us? And they have a space that they were like, I think we can get this because the community is so small. They're like, we would love us to use this community. And so I've not sought out any of them, though deeply in our plan, I said I wanted us to have different locations, but I've really kind of open-handedly tried to let the Holy Spirit lead into the connections and relationships we've already had. But again, this isn't one of our true guiding values, but it has formed to be that we're going to try as hard as we can to not pay rent to have worship anywhere. And so we're working really hard to just birth out of the relationships that we already have. And honestly, the comedy club one is the one we're the most interested in because it has the capacity for the most growth of any of them. The others are about 50 or so people, maybe 40 or so people that can hold them. Our current place, like I said, in the winter is 100, in the summer is 250. This other space is 250 is what it could hold, and don't have to worry about them opening for lunch. The other thing is we can only really do one service where we're at because the compelling thing is people go to our worship service in Defiance at Good News Brewing, and then they stick around and they have small groups. I would say like a lot of us fight to keep people around in the hallways or whatever to share coffee. About 80% of our church sticks around for pizza and drinks afterwards. And so they'll stick around, they'll open the bar. And so we give them 3 questions to have around their table. And so that one is like very unique in its situation. And so this one at the comedy club, we're very intrigued about the potential of trying to use their space in that regard. So, but to, like, again, the short way to answer that question, I just answered in a very long narrative way, was we have worked really hard to cultivate relationships, kind of what I said about Sadie, our worship leader, like knowing everyone in the coffee shop. That was actually the origin of how, because she met a comedian who then came to church, who then invited her friends, who then invited the owner. And so we're trying to be kind of faithful stewards of the relationships we're building outside the church and use those where we feel like God is leading us for the advancement of the church as it's expressed at the Well.
That's awesome. Thanks, Danny.
Yeah.
Got time for one more. You got a burning question. What's the demographic look like if I were to attend Good News? What would I see? Yeah, so we're in a predominantly white region that is about 30. The average age is about 33 to 37. So it's a lot of young families. And so
if you came into the church, what you would see is a really interesting demographic because we're about 40 minutes outside the city of St. Louis, but right now we have about 25 or so people that are 23 to 27 that commute in. And so they make up an interesting population of our community. I would say 60% of our population is in that demographic of what our community is, which is young families, which makes very chaotic for a Sunday morning because you have tables with some people have their, like I have 3 kids. I have a 7-year-old, a 5-year-old, and a 10-month-old. And so my wife is a saint and has a special place in heaven because she sits around a table while I'm preaching, trying to like hang out with all of our kids. And that's like a very relatively common experience for a lot of the other tables is there's just people with their kids. And because we're trying to create kind of a family friendly environment, if you know, like the Ergo baby carriers, I will often like just preach with my baby strapped to me so that we can like give my wife a break in that, but it helps create kind of a community sense where people feel welcomed. But yeah, we're young families. We have people in their 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s. We have a decent number of teenagers. If I'm being honest, where we're having the hardest time growing is because we don't have the capacity to form something for 6th through 12th graders based on our space. We're seeing those families engage, but their students not engage quite as well. And so what we're doing in realizing that it's not our kingdom, but it's God's kingdom, we're partnering with another church that has the kind of capacity for youth ministry at this point to kind of funnel our kids in there because it's within the same community and help them connect with them, realizing like we're holding pretty loosely people and saying like, if you stop coming to our church, that's great. And you fully plug in there, but here's a place to really plug in student wise. But yeah, we're pretty age diverse. Our growing edge right now is we're trying to grow in racial diversity, as that's the conversations around racial diversity and justice are very prevalent within our community. And so we're not just trying to model that in dialogue, but how are we creating a community that's more racially diverse, but being like super honest, like we have a long way to go before we can make any sort of claim to say we're close to that.
What's that? Hot Thoughts. Oh, yeah. They recognize you from Hot Thoughts.
Oh, yeah. Hot Thoughts. It's one of my, I need to bring it back. Yeah, so Hot Thought, that was we actually have a lot of people, not a lot of people that have come to our church through that. And so that was my like, we would eat spicy wings and talk about faith topics over Zoom. So you were on one and we had a pretty good time talking about faith and all that.
There's actually 4 of us in the building right now that were guests of yours on that episode.
Oh yeah, look at that. Well, you guys are the hard hitters. I think West Ohio really came out and showed up on Hot Thoughts.
Thank you. We appreciate that. Wasn't good enough to get you here though, I guess.
Well, hey, I have a special place in my heart for West Ohio.
I know, I'm just kidding with you. Hey, it's been great having your insight and experiences. And Danny, I'll tell you more about Danny, but he was a campus pastor of a new church start in Missouri called The Gathering. I don't know if you've heard of that church. Matt Miofsky's the pastor. Danny was a campus pastor there as well. So he has experience in church planting, multi-site. He just brings a lot of wisdom to us. So we are grateful for your time. I know that you're probably close to the beach right outside that door there, and you're probably ready to hit it. And so I've asked Reverend Colleen Buchter from Louisiana Annual Conference, who has a mutual friend of ours, Jennifer Moxley from Missouri Annual Conference. So she's going to pray for you, and we're going to join her.
Let us pray. God, we thank you for your spirit moving so strongly in the well. We thank you for Danny sharing with us, and we pray that you just use his experiences, all that he's learned, all that we have learned through him to just inspire us as we continue to hone our vision, as we continue along this journey of planting new churches and reaching new people, especially those who just don't feel welcomed within the traditional walls of the church. So as he goes forth from here, watch over him, watch over the well, watch over his leaders, and inspire us to do the same in our own communities. In your holy name we pray. Amen. Thanks, Danny.
Yeah, thank you guys. All right, I'll say farewell.
Good to see you, buddy. Take care. Enjoy the week.
Thank you, you too.
Thank you. All right, thanks, Colleen. Let's take a 5-minute break and circle back in and bring it home. Sound good? If you think of other questions about the well, you can bring them out.
I forgot that we were all on it, so. Little did we know, he was laying the ground for us. So I've got some assignments, but we'll send them out tomorrow. I'll send to you tonight. I'll show that video. So I can just pull up online. I'm so. You're good. You're good. Thank you. That was just sort of a personality too. Yeah, that's when it started to and I was kind of interviewing with King Avenue and for another campus, and he would be a great fit there. His wife is from Missouri. He moved here from Portland, I think, and she had a child from a previous marriage, so he couldn't move very far because of that. And so that's really what prohibited him. And then a year ago, he's like, I'd be interested in doing something collaboratively with West Ohio. Yeah.
So you can see.
I'm sorry.
Fundraisingauthority.com. Plan your act, decide who you're asking. This doesn't necessarily have to be money. It could be prayer, it could be join the team. It could be connecting with others. Decide who you're asking, decide what you're asking for. People will say no. Of course they will, but you're an entrepreneur. You're, in your mind, you're like, the next one's a yes, right? You're one away from being on a hot streak, right, Mitos? People will say no, always expect a yes. Show people how they can make a concrete difference or reach a concrete goal. That's what I was suggesting to you, Nicole, like, you know, be prepared to say, like I did David Taylor, we missed the opportunity for $1 million, and to kind of backtrack and say, we raised 500, will you match it? 500 will help plan 5 churches. You know what I mean?
Well, I didn't have my pledge card, because we get pledge cards and we have to collect them.
Right.
Yeah.
And we're doing pledge cards now in the office, like the lady that donated 50,000. I was like, Stars Foundation person started pledging.
When we were meeting people, we were meeting so many people, and sometimes people like to hold something. We had kind of a pledge card, but it was asking if they wanted to join our launch team, if they wanted to pray with us, and we would add them to our prayer email. So we would put their email on there, if they want to give, and if they have contact. So we like add it to one form, and then they can mark or not, like they can just tell us that they already have something to hold on to, and then they can put it back or not. But that was one thing too. So it's kind of a flash card, but it was something we could also talk through because we have vision on it, timeline on it, that kind of thing. So.
Yeah, or your greenhouse prayer, something like that. When Chris Reese was launching New City, we set up a GoFundMe. We, as in, I helped him set up a GoFundMe page, which is kind of out of the ordinary. And if you made a $100 donation, you got the limited edition New City Church shirt. You remember those? They had the big map on the front. And so he raised about 10 grand doing that, that he wouldn't have probably had before. So it's a $5 investment t-shirt to get $90 for as New Faith Community, but whatever it takes. The book you'll be reading in the next couple of weeks, month, probably is, you're going to read it, hopefully you read it, but it's going to probably be the next month to get it done. Is the coming revolution in church economics. And it talks about starting a multi-ethnic church, you have to have diverse streams of income. Hopefully we're all thinking diverse new congregations. But I'm going forward with the mindset of whether it's a traditional new church or creative New Faith Community, you need to have 2 additional partners to see sustainability long term. It's going to be challenging if you don't. Of course, the conference or the district could be one partner for a short time, but you've got to think outside of that. It's a new day. It is. It's a new day. Things are changing. So, great suggestion. Let's give people something to hold on to. I laid out the anatomy of an ask, so you can walk through that. And there are times when I go through this before I go into a meeting, just to kind of remind myself what I need to do. Even though I'm almost 50 and been doing this for a long time, it's good to be reminded. Be focused, the last one I'll just put down, be focused on the questions and patient around the response. Silence oftentimes, we can't handle, and we've got to fill that time with, don't you play basketball or Centerville? You're doing good, you got them thinking about jumping on board with this. He gets quiet. Now, don't you have a kid in college, right? So give it time to tell them. All right, let's move on. We're about to finish with this. Please read through it on your own at your leisure. Comment, question. still to this day. Where do you meet people? How do you meet people? And I'll invite others to share as well. The Chamber of Commerce, another club, their business leaders. We're gonna do the Shark Tank in early April. I'm inviting the Cincinnati Bengals owner to be there, okay? They might be there for you to pitch them your vision. That's a chance to make some connections with others, so they can support this thing. Might not ever attend, but they can support it. And they know other business leaders. Actually, I'm going to invite Elizabeth Blackburn, the daughter. Katie at Blackburn, got the owner, or, Mike Brown. Katie's the daughter, Elizabeth's the next in line. Sure. So, town council meetings, nonprofit agencies, school system, local farmers markets, pick up basketball games, online groups. You're going to listen to a podcast about what it means to do networking online, how to do it, how to support people today. And it'll even take it a step further and say, how's your perception online? Are you managing your perception online? For the sake of the kingdom, opposed to ourselves. Something that we did in Sykeston, and several new church start pastors have done it here, offer to be a chaplain for the local businesses. I don't know if you did that, Dave. Where he's at, it's a perfect opportunity to walk into every business and say, hey, we're working on something here, we're launching it in the fall. I'm offering myself up to be a chaplain for your employees. What that does is, first of all, you're going to be free. I'm still not to pay anybody, but with mental health, with the pandemic, with people, the workforce being a challenge right now for people, they're open to the idea of having someone check in, and you could just leave your card and say, if you ever need anyone, just have them give me a call, and I'll be there. So don't discount that as a possibility for you in your own region. That's a great way to build relationships and connections.
You frequent there often enough, you'll be called for funerals and like
The
friends with their family that passed away.
Yeah. Not a lot of people are offering that up. So it's a great opportunity to slide in. Something that we did back in the day, I still think it could be helpful, is let's say Ryan goes to the Columbus Dispatch and says, hey, can I write a monthly op-ed as a faith leader in Columbus on particular topics? What does that do? Well, it helps to establish you as a leading voice in that community, someone with a unique perspective. Let's look more into this, Ryan Grace. It sounds like the kind of leader that would be worth at least checking out. Let's learn more about his church. So you could do that. Sometimes they'll just invite you to do it on a regular basis, but sometimes you might have to pay for it. But it's definitely will help you kind of get yourself out there a little bit more. And of course, always seek persons of peace. Any questions about that or additions that you can visit common places to meet people? We are an established church, so we haven't thought about places to meet new people, have we? No offense to Barry, but he probably isn't thinking about where can I meet new people today? Right? That's why he's getting you, hopefully, right? You manage 2 restaurants. If Sam came in and said, hey, introduce myself to you, we're going to start a new church in this area. I wonder if you all have a chaplain for this location. What would you say?
What did I say?
Well, I mean, you're obviously going to be a chaplain. It's Warren.
Yeah, I would totally have that idea for sure.
Why? I think he's the same mindset as most. It's another gesture to say we care about our staff. We're bringing in this chaplain. Scar. So good. Any other places that you all meet people or envision meeting people? Yes.
I am unofficially on staff at a funeral home. So if there are families where, because people need a pastor when they get married and when they die, and that's it. Apparently, they don't need pastors to be. But if they don't have a pastor and they say we want a pastor, they'll call me, and 9 times out of 10, I am there and able to do it. Mostly because they know my schedule, and they just tell the families, well, if you need a pastor, our pastor's not available on Fridays, sorry. But also that ended up getting me into a cemetery and working with a cemetery as their pastor as well.
Very good.
So I've expanded, I do a lot of funerals, but I've met a lot of people through those, and not necessarily with follow-up, but through, they all have my contact information. They all have a way to get a hold of me if they need something. I've had 3 or 4 families in the past 2 years come back with a second loved one and actually ask the funeral home, hey, is Nicole still working with you? Can she do the service? So it has started to grow into something.
Awesome. That's a great idea.
Every time I get my hair cut.
What's that?
Every time I get my hair cut. Yeah, someone's got a pair of scissors and they're stuck with me for 20 minutes, that's captive audience.
Does it get faster every time though?
Depends on what the pitch is, I guess.
No, that's a great idea, yeah.
I spend a lot of money supporting other nonprofits to get into their parties. Because that's a place that you meet a diverse group, and oftentimes those are the Evans and Shakers, especially in the city. So I usually attend 3 or 4 gatherings a year just to network and get my mission and my ministry out to others, and we swap cards and all that good stuff. And it's an appropriate place to do so.
Yeah.
And you get included in some great.
That's great, for sure. Others? Like Sam, where are you gonna meet new people? If you're not already doing it.
We have like a weekly thing in Springboro that like all the business leaders go to, symphony breakfast, and then in Centerville, I've signed up to be the person they call for prayer at the beginning of their monthly meetings. So we got to kick off the new year praying for them, and then the city council was like, hey, you just renamed your church, where is it, what do you do? And so we got to get a hold of the deal, all the council members, it's pretty cool. So yeah, we just try to make ourselves available. We have an expo coming this week that about 3,000 people will come here from our church, hopefully through the booth process, and just little things like that.
Nico, how about you? You have a strategy yet? Put yourself in some circles.
I stay at home as often as possible.
Stand with you. So you know how many kids you got?
It's very workplace when like you have business, people literally come to your house.
You gotta watch your kids. You can count on them, I'm sure, to be part of this.
Yeah. I don't know.
We've got time to talk about it. Some of the things that like Jonathan Coleman was launching his Fresh Expressions in the brewery. We did coasters for all the breweries. Said coming soon, New Faith Community. I've done like, so you know, like Centerville is like the best high school basketball team in the nation right now. Anytime you can jump on that bandwagon, that'd be helpful.
Athletic director goes to our church. Small group of my life.
That's a significant, what I would call a significant contact, but you can also provide the cups to the concession stand. Coming soon. What's your church gonna be called, the new one?
The one we're at now is the Point.
I'm already looking ahead, man.
Oh, that one? I don't know. So I really like the idea of the Well. That's a great name for a church and a bar.
So, coming soon, the Well. Don't come if you're over 40.
Oh, great.
But stuff like that, that's where the marketing hub in terms of like scatter the seeds, right? And then your culture of invitation is really what will be out there saying, hey, I'm part of this New Faith community in Centerville called The Well, and they'll be like, I saw something about that the other day when I was in Buffalo Wild Wings. So anything you can do to get those seeds out, like you're a small town, right? Defiance, 30,000, I guess, right?
Yeah.
There's smaller towns than that. But there are ways that you can probably support some of those businesses to kind of get that word out a little bit more as well. You can still stay in your home and do it. But social media is a big, social media ads, but also your presence. Everybody in that community is on Facebook, I'm sure. So anytime you can establish yourself as a.
Nico, you could get dog bandanas. And every dog that uses food needs one of
those. I'm not picking up the passion. I'm not picking up the passion for anything.
No, that's a perfect idea.
So be thinking now, if you're looking at the breweries, you go to Olentangy and say, hey, what if, not now, but hey, what if we provided the posters out there for you? Because they have to pay for those anyway. And then what if we did some, like Jonathan Coleman, Jonathan Coleman, Faith and Friends on Tap. We were with him Friday for a GHX training. He was so psyched. He's like, they've created a special Bach. Is that right?
Double Bach.
Did you see this?
I was supposed to go, yeah.
Double Bach. Obviously, you could tell I'm a big fan. I didn't know what it's called. He's like, they want me to bless their beer, their new beer. I was like, just when you thought you'd heard it all? Yeah. There you go. But he was so excited because it's really all about the relationship that he's developed with the owners. And so there are a lot of ways that you can kind of stand out and get people to know his.
I was at the coffee shop that is in downtown Batavia the other day, and I noticed that the sleeves that you have on your coffee, that everybody has to have in coffee pot, they had something on them, and I said, what would it take for, you to put what my logo is on? And he's like, you just go buy them, bring them in, and I'll give them one. So literally, I went to get coffee, and now I have it.
Yeah, they have to buy those things. So if somebody's kind enough to donate them, you'd be like, I like these people. I like those people. So we're going to talk more about those probably in the last session. Some ideas around that, but there are plenty of ways where you can sprinkle the emerging brand out into the community. What I want you to do is, over the next 2 weeks, read through the rest of these, and then to build a launch team, read through that. Some very important things for you to take note of in there. And then the last page talks about emotional terrorism. There are a lot of things that kind of fall into that category. Every new church will attract people who have their own agendas. Don't fall into the trap of desperation or scarcity. I hear about these stories often. Right here, it's hard to trust and let go of people. Norm called me last night at 8 o'clock, or maybe I called you back, because to be quite honest, his senior pastor is worried that if they go dark, the church will go rogue. So there's a lot that goes into those decisions. But you want to launch with healthy DNA as best we can. If you're going to do this, it's just, rebranding. And that can work, but it's really not what you're here for. That's a different training. Don't be held hostage by those who have their own agendas. Focus on the mission, allowing us to drive every decision we make. Don't be manipulated. Don't let it become infected. How do you uninvite people? Anyone have any stories on that they want to share?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, you got to, right?
Yeah.
You got to. It's hard, but you got to do it now. You can't wait. They already know Jesus. It's not always easy. They're saved. It's not who you necessarily focus on.
They don't even wear skirts in church.
Okay. Yeah. And so when you uninvite someone, meet with them in person. there's always a risk in doing this. Stay to them while you're asking them to leave. You got a view in mind you're thinking about right now? Current setting? Nico, no? It's all good?
I got some. Well, either I don't invite them or I just set it in,
Here's the part that you need to expect that the person you're uninviting will disagree with you, will argue with your decision, will react with relatively strong emotions, and will probably attempt to further manipulate or bully you and your group. Don't give in. John Morgan called me last Friday night. Just launched this thing last fall. John Morgan, Hope Collective, Oregon District. He would tell you the story if he was here. Thinking, oh my gosh, my leader, I'm having turmoil in my leadership team already. And he told me about everything that's going on. Like, you gotta invite one of those two sooner than later, or it's going to cause so much distraction for you. It could destroy it. So, no one is immune to it. You just gotta take care of it as soon as you can. The longer you let negativity like that linger, the more damage it can do, right? Last thing I'll put in here, I'll put some notes. Job description for the pastor of an existing church is very different from that of a church planting pastor. That's bad news for many of you here, because you do both. Yeah. So you have to wear multiple hats. It's going to be even more challenging. So what Danny described, full time, he's doing that full time. He's happy, he can go out and drink coffee all day. Not everybody has the luxury. I understand that. So I don't want to discourage you by what you heard and you comparing yourself to Danny. What you got to do is, like Nicole lifted up, you got to figure out how much time you can commit to this new thing out of the established church, and how to be fair to the people that pay the bills. It's nice to have somebody to pay the bills right now. What you kind of do what we're supposed to do already, but you have to have the board to vote on it, I know. So anyway, I know that it's a challenge. I'm thinking of Colleen as well. How do you do this? How do you live in that tension? Can't wait to see how it unfolds for you.
Yeah, you can't wait.
That's why Ryan and I, first time we met, I was like, you've got to have a clear contract, like an agreement between the established church and what you're going to provide. So a couple of things I'm going to go over real quick. I lost my iPad, it went dead, so I'm going to look it up here. Any questions about networking? That's not a book, but I've kind of written down a lot of things from my own experiences, from what I've learned from others who are doing it. Don't take it lightly. Like I said, it's probably the number one reason why church plants end up failing to thrive. They stop networking, they stop having the culture of invitation, and turn inward. So, a couple things I want to go over. We've got 2 weeks from now, we are meeting in the warehouse. And we're going to talk about fundraising, stewardship, growing generous givers. All right. Then we're going to do an exercise that afternoon, wear comfortable shoes. It's going to be a beautiful day. I already know it. Okay. But we talked about doing a meal together, after one event. So we could either do it that day, that evening, in Cincinnati, over the Rhine, or the Shark Tank is April the 6th. We can meet after that. So be thinking about that. We can also do a little survey to see what works best for you all. So think about the meal. We'll post this in the hub. Between now and the next time we meet, you're going to think about creating your own system. I'd like to see it, so I could learn from it as well. So think about what system are you going to create to connect with people, to follow up with people, so you can get excited about this. You're going to read a book. Start reading a book. You'll have a month to read the book. economics. We're gonna have a listening exercise that you're gonna work on coming into next time, and we're gonna listen to podcasts and networking on social media. I want to take a couple minutes to talk to you about the Shark Tank. So that's going to be April 6th in Columbus at St. Luke's, familiar territory for you, so that's going to be helpful. But you'll have 2 rooms that you're going to present to. You'll have 60 seconds to present your elevator pitch. One room will simulate a group of clergy. One group will simulate a group of lay, maybe church, maybe not, you don't know. So you've got to think about how you would present to varying groups. And will you adapt it for varying groups? So you'll have 60 seconds. They'll score you in 5 categories. They'll even score you, did you keep it around 60 seconds? Okay, so that's why you got to practice. We've got 2 weeks. One thing that I will say, passion is so important. Right, vision, passion. I want to show you a video right now, and we'll be finished. We'll pray and we'll leave. Do y'all watch American Idol? Yeah. We love the rehearsals, the tryouts. They're so fun. I got a 6-minute video of a guy that was on there Sunday night. It's really funny, but I want to make sure we don't see ourselves in this particular person. Think of the Idol as like the Shark Tank, right? They're going in and presenting and hoping to make it to the next round. Get the audio. Now, the guys with really great singers. This is about passion. Oh, it's coming out of there. So you need to switch.
Well, I turned on the TV down.
Multiple, so many things.
But then you're going like live and release.
All right, ready?
They're saying I'm doing like live and release.
Yeah.
You think I should do that?
I know this is the full time.
I tried a couple more times, still wouldn't hook up.
You couldn't get it?
No.
Are we ready?
Yes.
So have your attention. Can I have your attention, please? This is really good. Subject of the day is passion. All right. Passion.
My name is Eric Westbury. I'm 20 years old and I'm from Stockholm. They're saying I'm doing live and release. The first time that I realized that somebody had liked my city was when I sent the video to a girl me singing Fun Female. She liked it. So, the girl you like. No, it's just a friend. I'm serious. No, it's just we're just friends.
No, Aaron.
What's up? How are you? Good. Tell us who you are, where you're from. My name is Aaron Westbury. I'm 20 years old and I'm from Greenville, South Carolina. Aaron Westbury, what do you do in Greenville? I'm currently working at a grocery store and I stock produce. Did you recycle the lettuce? Oh, yeah, it's not too bad. Throw it in the compost. You in college or anything? Just working. Haven't made any big decisions yet.
He said they were made big decisions, he's only obviously for American Idol right now.
Yeah. You don't sing today. I have, 2016 by Sam Hunt. Good deal. You gonna play on piano? Yeah, yes. You don't want to.
Unusual sentiments. Kind of reminds me of like a Owen Wilson.
Yeah.
I've heard the whiskey hanging in the bar. Put the smoke back in the drum. Look up at the sky and say, okay, okay, okay. Think you made your point. And I drive 1,000 miles to your house, walking like I walked down. Put the tears back in your eyes, 'cause all my lies can still come true. I tell you everything was alright, and hold you baby all night. Your heart was all fixed up, our love was good as new. And I take 2016 and don't know that it's in between. Give them back to you.
All right, Mr. Westbury.
Stop the cruise.
You have a heartbreak tone, man. You have some, like, you say some stuff and it pulled us in and we're just like, oh my God, this kid's breaking our heart.
Oh my God, yeah.
And you're doing that with that tone you just gave us.
Yeah, you're really good. Your voice makes them sound. It doesn't have this crazy range. It doesn't need this crazy range.
Yeah.
It's wild.
So I gotta ask you a very serious question. Do you like working in the produce department? I mean, do you just have a passion for that produce?
No.
Well, I didn't hear that.
No.
No, that's what I'm saying. So do you really want to be on American Idol? No. No. I'm gonna ask you, my man.
Yes.
Understand, passion is the key.
Yeah.
You got it?
Yes. You may be one of the most limited singers that we've ever sent to Hollywood.
Can we send you to Hollywood?
Do you understand what I mean? Yeah. Did you ever get the Owl video?
It's very Allison.
Yeah. But your delivery is just right up there with like James Taylor. Correct. You know James Taylor?
Jeez.
You're so wrong, it ain't even dead yet. All right, let's vote. Okay.
I mean, maybe the most new I've felt all day.
Yeah.
It's a yes for me. It's gonna be interesting.
It's going to be interesting. I do believe that I'm going to invest in you. Say yes for me. All right.
Oh, man, you're like walking melatonin. Man, you got that character, and somehow you can give up a little more focus. A little more passion. You melt hearts.
Yeah.
My hope is, and yes, you got 3 yeses. Guess what? 1, 2, 3. Thank you very much.
There you go. There you
I've never missed something stupid. I mean, come on. So, walking melatonin, right?
After a successful inaugural year, the Amtrak Waterfront Express is back. Train service from Bedford Union Station and begin. Scary, but I'm not.
So what did you all like? Well, what?
Like Jurassic Park, it'll find a way.
How are we picking up all the news on that? Okay, what stood out to you all watching that video?
This is raw energy.
Infectious enthusiasm.
Yeah.
Wearing joggers and a t-shirt. I mean,
I loved his music, man. That was powerful. But here's the thing, that almost got lost.
Yeah.
In the whole confidence, passion side of it. So I showed that to us to remind us all, if you have a gift, it's your vision that you're going to bring to this arena of ministry. And you've got to be passionate, you've got to be confident in it, or no one else will be, right? So as you prepare between now and next time, as you continue to whittle this thing down a little bit more, we used to say if you got stuck on an elevator with LeBron James, and he said, what do you do? You've got to be ready, assuming that it's only 2 stories, not 20. You got to be ready to share. So, passion is going to be. LeBron, I don't know his faith belief, but he does have resources that could help your new faith community. That's my point. So, other thoughts about the video? All right, any questions about content today or process up to this point?
Question.
Yes.
Thinking about the elevator, are we talking as if it's already in existence? I'm a pastor of this church, and like we did with a vision, or more promoting the vision and talking about this is what I think, and this is how I action.
I mean, do you watch the Shark Tank?
Not really, no.
Sometimes they're going in there, they've already started this thing, they just need extra capital. Sometimes they're hoping to start it, and so it just really depends on how you want to present it. Just thinking in my recent life, starting Light the Way fundraiser, we didn't really have any churches, so it was kind of fantasy pie in the sky. So you have to have a compelling vision as you go in there and try to knock their socks off. So it's up to you. They'll probably say, have you already started this? Opposed to, this is the vision for this emerging community in Cincinnati. So
Dave said he'd like to give us an example.
No, I did not.
to give what?
It's so bad.
Yes, yeah, I heard.
He asked me to give my elevator pitch as an example.
Oh, great. Do you remember?
Well, I could give the elevator pitch that I'm working on for Kingdom Dreams.
The new one? Yeah.
Okay.
Go for it.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's very experienced.
Yeah.
Remember Colleen's?
Oh, yeah. Sorry. Okay. This is on the spot. So a lot of people have these dreams of things that they want to do. In fact, you're all here right now having a dream that you're wanting to accomplish and to fulfill. But most people don't have that next step, that thing that would allow them to take the next step to accomplish that vision or accomplish that dream. Kingdom Dreams Initiatives is here for you to help you guide your vision to the next steps and to get you to completion. I've been privileged to be a part of the launch of a small nonprofit ministry that has seen over 20,000 people come through our doors in the first 3 years. We've also launched a fully sustaining church that is meeting needs throughout our community. And now we are applying all the principles of Kingdom Dreams initiatives so that we can continue to help other people dream big dreams and accomplish those dreams, like make them a reality. We want to come alongside you to help you make your vision come true, to help make your dreams come true, so that you can take it from a discovery process all the way to development and to deploy you to realize your kingdom dream in your community.
Yeah.
How long? 30. Do you want to share your vision for Camp Slim, this key time of Dave's? Dave, start your clock now. Nice job, Dave.
Hi. Have you ever been in a place where things just stood still? Have you ever been in a place where all of a sudden something made sense? West Ohio Camps is one ministry in multiple locations, working with churches to help local families understand, maybe for the first time, that this world was created by God, and we are all built for loving community. So I invite you to look at one of our places. Join us for a night, a weekend, or a week, and be a part of changing lives, one child at a time.
That was impressive. That was unplanned. So that's really what we're going to be looking for in a month from now in Columbus. So I would say practice it on each other, your own family, for your own team. Practice it in the community. Get feedback. Hey, what do you think about this? We want you to be prepared when you go in there. Preparation is the separation. All right. Did you want to share yours? Not yet. Okay. Not ready yet. Well, that's a kingdom dream. Any other thoughts, questions, suggestions? And two, the Shark Tank, we'll have a little extra free time if you want to do some small group conversing, asking me questions about things. We'll have more time to do that then, because not everybody goes into the tank at the same time. You'll go in there one at a time. So you can always get out of me over there. Anything else?
We're gonna update the job tomorrow with, or with on third.
Keep it tight.
Do you want to go a little bit more about what we did? Or did you already check?
So yeah, we're gonna do some, you'll go out in the Washington Park area, over the Rhine area. You're gonna share your vision with people and get feedback to see how, so you're gonna do some exercises in sharing, exercises in listening. Just to see, you'll say, I'm not starting a church here, but we are starting something new. I'd love to share it with you, to see what you think. Trying to connect with people like yourself.
Are there buildings that will be visiting by?
Joe Burrow will be Joe's in town. I'll see if I can get Katie or Elizabeth to come over that day. Probably not. Anything else?
I just want to remind everyone that I have a new email address, so don't email me at agraves@WCUMC. If you have emailed me there, send it to my new one, elizabeth.graves@gmail.
Colleen, do you have a question? Anything?
Who's the other person that had John Gerard?
Nicole. So
Have you heard back from John?
I did initially, I just sent him another email to check in.
Colleen? They've met.
I didn't respond when he sent me.
You've met with your IDI guide, right, Colleen? Once, John Gerard? I wasn't making out the email threads. You emailed and he emailed.
I haven't got an email. I've emailed him twice. But very much.
Yeah, he, you were on that like yesterday, I think. He emailed back and said, see my note from Mark or something. Or, I'll look and see if he wrote it. He replied back.
Oh, he did?
Yeah.
Still in one period, no, it's not working. Because you didn't get my initial email that he was here.
No?
Let me look at that email a little closer. I thought you were on it. So work through this handout, keep it as a reference point. It's not the resource, it's a resource for you to gain confidence, regain confidence, that you begin sharing, you begin asking, you begin building your core group launch team, which for some of you could be sooner than later. So good. It's great to be with you all half a day today. I'll be there in Cincinnati all day. And we'll figure out a poll maybe to see if everybody can stay over either in Cincinnati or Columbus. Dave's time. Something like that. That's it. I'll ask Alan to close us in prayer. Do you mind?
Are just so blessed being here today. There's so much learning, oh God, and sometimes we are overwhelmed. But Lord, come upon us with peace. May you remind us, oh Lord, that all these things we are doing is all about you, all for you. And we just ask your mighty in Jesus' name.
Amen.
Thank you. Thank you.
What's the hub tomorrow sometime?
Wait, one more thing. After the next session, you're gonna be starting to put together a budget for this new thing. I'm thinking about budget.
Sorry, getting quick, grateful to have you guys here today, extremely, thankful that I get to spy and then sit in on this before I join next year. I know Pastor Peter mentioned, getting you some information about the Equity Center. Also, if you'd like a tour, to see kind of what's been happening, we've really retrofitted and McKinney almost every room in this space. And so if you'd like to see what we're doing, I'm gonna take you around if you'd like that. But if not, make sure you just get this, and thanks so much for being here.
She's done with it.
And I could actually invite them, you know, there.
See you, Colleen.
Not too far,
Bye.
only 25 minutes or something.
We got it for you.
If they travel, everybody wants to stay.